Hello and welcome to Wine Blast. I'm Susie Barry.
And I'm Peter Richards. We're both masters of wine who happen to be married to each other, but do not fear. Even though I know this episode is called Spread the Love, we just don't go in for the kind of cheesy, sickly, romantic stuff. So this is emphatically not a Valentine's episode where we're going to be recommending loads of pink fizz and talking about soulmates and stuff like that.
No. We've been married far too long for that. But spreading the wine love takes many forms, and we will touch on the issue of perfect pairings a bit later on in the show when we've got some delicious wines to recommend alongside a beautiful dish of miso beef with soy mustard sauce, which is just the most fantastic recipe for a special dinner at a time of year like this.
Oh, absolutely. So on the subject of wines, we should clarify right from the start that this is a sponsored episode in partnership with Majestic Wine. A number of you have been in touch to suggest we do episodes where we hook up with specific wine retailers to choose our personal favourites from their range, which you can then go out and buy in one go.
Absolutely. And the idea is that these occasional episodes will be clearly signposted so you can easily find them. And what we'll do is we will explore a subject or theme and then select our choices to go with that theme from the retailer's range. Hopefully, this will give you some helpful wine suggestions that are easy to buy, thereby spreading the wine love.
Yeah, I see what you've done there. If you're not based in the same country or you can't access that particular retailer, sorry, we will try to cover a range of geographies with these episodes. And either way, we'll always try to choose at least some wines that are available internationally. And if not, there will undoubtedly be similar wines available in your local market.
Yeah, I mean, equally, if you're listening to this a while after the episode first aired, some of the wines may, of course, have sold out. But again, I think there's a strong likelihood you'll be able to find different vintages of the same wine or just similar styles. And I have to say, we have got some great bottles lined up today, as you might expect, across a range of styles, haven't we?
We have, haven't we?
Bit of everything.
Fizz.
We've got white, rosé, red.
Yeah, we have got rosé, but
not rosé fizz.
No rosé fizz. Important to say that. Okay, can't wait. They are absolutely delicious. Now, for this special episode, we're also helping out our friends at Wine GB because that body representing wine producers here in the UK, they were keen to run a competition on social media, asking you, lovely lot, how you first fell in love with wine, which we thought was a great idea.
Of course, absolutely.
And then it kind of snowballed, didn't it, with Majestic very kindly offering a winner's prize of a 3-bottle set of English wines, the Balfour Winemakers Collection wines worth £125. No less.
Woohoo.
So the game was on, wasn't it?
It was
indeed.
Really so anyway, if you missed this particular competition, then just make sure you follow us on social media and you will not miss out on our next competition, which we'll be running several, won't we, over the coming weeks. We're at Susie and Peter on Insta and on Twitter. He's at Wine Schools and I'm at Susie Barry. But we should also say a huge thank you to both Majestic and Wine GB for doing this because it turned out to be so much fun, didn't it?
It really did. It did.
Really.
And on that note, and before we, I think, come on to share some of the best stories and announce the winner, I think it's only fair that we should spill the beans on how we first fell in love with wine. What do you reckon?
Fair enough.
Okay, all right.
Fair enough.
If you think it's fair enough, then you go first.
Okay. Well, this goes back, as you well know, to my acting days when I was in pantomime,
darling,
in Oxford, darling.
Treading the boards.
I was slapping my thigh as Dandini in Cinderella. Doesn't get more glamorous than that, does it? Anyway, I was walking through Oxford one day when I saw a poster for a wine tasting that Oz Clarke was hosting in a local bar, and I thought, that sounds like fun. My kind of night. So on my night off, I dragged my friend Cinderella along to this tasting, and Oz being Oz, we of course had the most fantastic time. And
just to clarify, were you and Cinderella still in costume at this stage?
No,
character?
No, incognito.
You didn't slap your thighs in the wine tasting?
Well, I might have slapped my thigh. I don't know about that. Might have slapped Oz's thigh.
I don't want to know.
Anyway, I just kind of fell in love with wine and the whole idea of wine as a career. So that was, I think, my light bulb moment when I decided, slightly naively, I have to say, that I'd like to just give up acting and become a wine expert.
Very nice. Very nice.
Anyway, that's me. So what about you?
Well, yeah, there wasn't really sort of just one moment, really. I certainly wasn't destined for wine in any way. But I was working as a journalist in Chile, I guess, when my boss totally out of the blue, asked me whether I'd like to write a tourist guide to visiting the wineries and vineyards of Chile. And it's sort of one of those moments in life, that kind of question you don't say no to. So I just sort of thought about it and said, yes. I knew nothing about wine whatsoever. But, I just thought, well, why not? Let's
feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't really fear, was it? It's not like putting your head in lion's jaws. I didn't know anything about wine, but, I just took myself off with a beaten up old Beamer, with a hose pipe for an exhaust, which kept breaking down, a map that just didn't tell me anything about what I needed, so I constantly got
lost. Google Maps in those
days. No, a very
very
dusty laptop. But I just met all these amazing people in these amazing places with brilliant wines. And that's how I learned, and that's how I caught the bug, and there was no going back after that, really. Even I was, and I haven't said this many times, but I was lined up for, potential talks with the Foreign Office. So that was probably, that was probably my alternative career destiny.
It's amazing what you find out on a podcast, isn't it?
So I'd like to apologise to the Foreign Office for
So Britain's
back.
Diplomatic Corps and the acting community are down by 2 committed drinkers.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I'm not sure it's a great loss.
No, I'm
to the nation.
Sure it's not. I'm not sure it's a great gain to the wine world. But anyway, but what of your tales of how you first fell in love with wine, which is what we're most interested in, isn't it?
It is indeed. That's what we're here to look at. So the question that we asked was, when and how did you first fall in love with wine? Share your story, and you could win an amazing 3-bottle set of Balfour Winemakers Collection wines worth £125. And those wines, just to clarify now, are 3 bottles, really special bottles.
Really special. So we've got Balfour Les 6 2014, which is a blend of 6 grape varieties, a sparkling wine. Only 2,000 bottles were made, and it spent 5 years aging on the Lee. So it's got all those sort of unusual varieties in Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, but also Petit Blanc, Alban, Petit Meslier. So really interesting wine there.
Interesting wine, £55. That one, a cool £55. Then we've got the Balfour Saignée 2018, which is about £35. I know we said we weren't going to feature.
I've just realised.
Yes, we weren't going to feature Rosé Fizz. That is a Rosé Fizz.
It's a Rosé Fizz,
but it's
just
different.
Very quickly.
It's one that's very different. It's not made
it
by adding red wine to make it rosé. It's a specific style of Saignée, and it's a bit different.
And it's £35.
We'll gloss over that one.
The third one is the Balfour the Suitcase Pinot Noir, so a red from the beautiful 2018 vintage. Again, £35. But we're going to discuss that in a moment. Okay, so that's
in
a beautiful
the tweet,
set of wines.
in the social post, we clarified the competition is in association with Majestic Wine and Wine GB. Use the hashtag #WineMyHeartAway, over 18s and UK addresses only. And we had,
that's what we asked.
We asked for that, and we had amazing entries from all over the world. We don't sadly have time to read them all out, but sorry. And we have shortened some as well in the interest of brevity. But we just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who took part, entered, shared their stories. It was brilliant.
So what we're going to do is we are going to share some of the best and then reveal our top 3 and, of course, our winner.
So you're going to kick off?
Yeah. Okay. So this one did come from New Zealand. So it goes like this. 1986, a bottle to share with a lover. Recommended by a cool exotic Aussie in odd bins. Cork out with a Swiss Army knife and drunk from plastic cups. Blenheim Palace in full summer splendour. Montana Sauvignon Blanc. Youthful joy.
I love that story. It's got everything, isn't it? And that Montana Sauvignon Blanc in 1986, that would have been ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Love the idea of a cool exotic Aussie in Oddbins. How many of those were there? Shout out to you guys. But the bit that gets me is the plastic cups. And the Swiss Army knife.
Love it.
It's just easy going. This is wine is fun. Next entry we had was from Dr. Risto Talas. He said, I properly fell in love with wine in summer 1987 during lunch at the Waterside Inn at Bray. It was the first time I tasted Margaux and Yquem.
Oh, glamorous. Wow.
That's the way to fall in love with wine, by the way.
I think it is. We'd all fall in love when we were drinking Margaux and Yquem.
He does clarify, no, I wasn't paying. The following year, he says, I was working in Oddbins with the future Mrs. T, and we went to Soho to buy eels from a fishmonger, which I hot smoked that evening. You know how to get the ladies,
cool.
Risto. We had just fresh lye cheese with Yquem 1983 for dessert. Simple, but fabulous. Happy days. It was a week's salary I spent on that bottle of Yquem, but it was worth it. And I should clarify, they did.
It was worth it because
they did end up falling in love.
They fell in love and got married, didn't they? Yeah,
Isn't that
we know them
story?
well.
Particularly like the eels in that story.
The eels. I love smoked eel. I mean, home smoked eel, Risto, brilliant. Giles, living in Barcelona, he says, comparing Priorat and Montsant thanks to your, Peter Richards, recommendations.
My recommendations will lead you astray, Giles. They will corrupt you, but thank you for saying that's very kind of you. Matt Wilson, driving a friend to Gatwick Airport to meet her sister, a winemaker from Chile. Things hotted up, and next thing, I was living in Chile, married to a winemaker, and my love of wine became part of the deal. I literally married into wine. And that's love, isn't that? That's how to fall in love with wine.
Love at first
Fall
sip.
in love with a winemaker.
Next up, I never used to like wine. I'm sure all those £5 bottles as students didn't help. But we went on holiday to South Africa, and being in the landscape where the grapes were grown helped me connect with it in a way I hadn't before. Plus, this is the best bit, one night lions passed right next to our campfire, and thinking something might be your last drink makes it taste pretty good. Fair enough.
So all we need to do, if you've got a sort of vin ordinaire, just go and drink it with lions. It's going to make it taste so much better.
Head to the zoo, pop into the lion
Some
cage.
real personal danger. Go up a crane or something, and that plonk will taste amazing.
Bungee jumping.
I love that. Sophia said, I fell in love with a Sirtico on Greek summer nights. The island atmosphere was buzzing, the music was loud, and the temperature was high. The food pairings were light and fresh, although the wine itself was so delicious that it made for a perfect starter, main, and dessert itself. I mean, that says it all. Thank you, Sophia. It's so evocative. But, I challenge anyone not to fall in love with wine, and particularly a Sirtico.
On Santorini.
On, say, Santorini.
Just
go
one of those
there.
Greek islands.
And also, I really agree with it about being a meal in itself. It's one of the ultimate.
You don't need anything else, do you, really? So Tim Pinder says, from a Sirtico to peas porter here, I only ever drank peas porter as a student in the early 80s, so I decided I wanted to spread my wings and joined a wine appreciation club. It was hosted by the local vicar with a weekly tasting fee of £5. And I suddenly appreciated reds because I wasn't going to spend £5 only to drink half the samples.
Thrifty, Tim, thrifty. We like that.
Love it. The Rhone Reds of Côte-Rôtie, Saint-Joseph and Crozes-Hermitage made me a lifelong fan of Syrah, but now more likely from Chile as France.
Yeah, I know. I hear that. I agree.
Chile making some great Syrah, actually,
There's lots of good Syrah made around the world now, isn't there? South Africa, New Zealand. Anyway,
yeah.
Next story. I was uninterested until 17, when I vividly remember my dad cooking up some amazing beef with a fantastic red wine. It wasn't until I tasted the two together that I understood the appeal. I also remember enjoying my first glass of white with an amazing seafood linguine on Porthminster Beach in Cornwall. Since moving to Kent, we've been fortunate to be on the doorstep of some fabulous British winemakers.
Absolutely. Mark says, 10 years ago, my wife and I travelled to Saint-Emilion for a couple of nights. We bought a bottle of wine in a shop recommended by the shop owner, who was then horrified to be asked to open it. We ended up drinking a superb Chateau Marte from the toothbrush cups from our B&B. Overlooking the wall by Clos Forte, watching the sunset with a magical wine made us fall in love with wine and each other. We were married later that year.
Oh, I wonder how many marriages wine is responsible for in a year.
From a toothbrush cup.
And toothbrush cups. Probably fewer. Another story. We used to go camping in France when I was younger, and there was a local cooperative bar that sold the most amazing selection of super cheap but delicious local dry and sweet wines for a few hours a day. I was almost definitely too young to legally drink, but would be allowed a small glass, and it was always packed with locals crowded around the barrels. It's still one of my favourite bars in the world, 15 years on.
Tom says, I fell in love by spending my weekends and all my restaurant tips at the Sampler. I couldn't believe there were all these different types of wines providing all these different experiences. 7 years later, and I'm running my own wine shop, Carviste, and it's a dream job. Great story.
Oh, it's a nice continuation there, isn't it? Now, I think
I was just going to say the next one. I think it has to be me reading this again, doesn't it? Yes, because it's from Claire, lovely Claire, our friend Claire. And she says, you'll see why it has to be me in a moment. She says, back in early 2006, I booked a wine expert called Peter Richards.
Wine expert?
For my show.
Scraping the barrel.
He walked backstage as I was polishing wine glasses, introduced himself, started checking the wines, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah, I feel I should apologise, Claire, for kind of ruining your life here. We are very bad influences
We
all
are
around.
indeed,
But of course,
we are.
Claire is now a fantastic friend. Hi, Claire. We run Wine Festival Winchester together.
do
don't So,
indeed.
which has been
Yeah.
a wonderful, wonderful thing.
All
And hopefully
about
brought
wine.
lots of wine into other people's lives as well.
I think so.
But thank you. Thanks for that, Claire. It's really kind of you. Andrew Mills wrote in to say, Lake District family holiday in 1986. We wanted wine with our Friday night dinner at the Helton Inn. We were used to cheap Mosel, and the landlord recommended a demi-sec Vouvray. And the world changed.
Now that's what wine's about, isn't
That is
it?
it. Change your world with
whole
wine.
world changes.
Change your world.
So Chef Marnie says, I was about 21 and housemates and I hosted a big cheese and wine party. I wasn't a huge wine fan, but knew everyone else loved it.
Cheese and wine parties.
Cheese and wine. That makes me think of pineapple on sticks as well. I bought a couple of mixed cases with my measly retail salary and I found a wine in there that tasted so much like elderflower. I ended up drinking...
Tasted like joy. Tasted
Well,
like joy.
Elderflower is joy.
Isn't it? It's
Think
very
about
joyful.
it. Floral joy. I ended up drinking the whole bottle. By 11 p.m, I had stumbled up to my room, locked my door and collapsed asleep. I woke up at 8 a.m. with about 15 missed calls from my partner. I panicked and unlocked my bedroom door to find him curled up on the floor, asleep, with a towel as a blanket. Whoops.
I'm veering between saying we've all been there and we've never done that in our lives. I
Wouldn't
can't
dream of doing
empathise
anything
at all.
as
Marnie, lovely story. Thank you so
hedonistic
much.
as that.
Thank you so much for
Never
sharing.
drunk a whole bottle of
we
wine
are
to
on
myself.
to our final entries.
Our final three.
Final three. So we've got two runners
Couple
up.
of runners
I'll
up,
read
and
out
then
the
our
first
winner.
runner up. So it's just the
Ooh,
kudos
it's
to the
too
runners up,
exciting.
but thanks for sharing, guys. These brilliant stories. First runner up is Lee James. Lee says he first fell in love with wine, taking a sip straight from the barrel that descended from a crane in the square in Beaujeu on Beaujolais Nouveau night 1995 when I was a student in Lyon. Afterwards, I danced with 3 generations of locals to the Umpar band until 6 in the morning. A lesson right there that sometimes it's not about the wine in your glass, but where you are and who you're with. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you,
So
Lee.
good.
What a
So
lovely
good. I
moral
just
to
love the
story.
idea of the crane craning in the barrel
I know,
of
it
wine.
does-
I mean, it's just a
there's a drama.
brilliant image. It's fantastic. Nicola, you are our second runner-up, and we love this story. So Nicola said, we decided to leave the rat run of the London suburbs and move our family of 5 to the beautiful Kent countryside. Through the years, I tried several wines, but never found anything I could say I loved. That was until a few years ago. For my 40th birthday, my husband took me to a local vineyard and we did a wine tasting event. I learnt about the different grapes and the process of making wine. That was when I fell in love with it. We had to leave behind 40 years of friends and family when we moved, but through a new love of wine, we have found a new family and friends through English wine, and we're surrounded by phenomenal vines and countryside. What more could you want? Cheers.
Yeah, it's a lovely story. Thank you, Nicola.
very good
It also
story.
proves, the wine bug can get you any time.
Yeah.
Early or late in life, and it always opens up new things.
Or
and
right
it's
in
a
the
fun
middle.
thing to- Indeed. Yes, 40 is still very young,
It is.
obviously.
I think that's definitely right in the
anyway,
middle.
come on. We need the winner, don't we?
We do indeed.
And we
Ooh.
have a very special winner. We love this because it was so simple but romantic, I guess, and with kind of life-changing consequences. So, thank you. Are you going to read this one out?
I am.
So do we need a little bit of a
We're going
drum
to have a
roll?
little pause, a
bit
little
of
brrrr. Drum roll. The winner is... We need some music, really, don't we?
No, we should-
Beat. Anna Suarez. And Anna said, here we go. I was a cook. I fell in love with a sommelier. On our first date, he taught me how to decant a wine, and I still remember the spice and buttery aroma of that wine. He gave me my first wine book, and the following year I left my job to pursue a career in wine.
Oh, it's got it all.
Anna, we love it.
Laughter. tears.
Anyway, Anna, you are our winner. You are going to be getting that lovely selection of Balfour wines. Congratulations. So, Anna, you are in for a treat with those 3 Balfour wines from Majestic Wine. Congratulations from us and
well done.
enjoy. And thanks to everyone for sharing your stories. If you've got a lovely anecdote or story you'd like to share with us and everyone, you can still do that, of course. So please do, either via social media or head to our website, susieandpeter.com/podcast. podcast, and you can tell the story in your own voice by using the little orange speak pipe function. It's very easy, and we would love to hear from you.
We would. We always do. And on which note, we did do another Twitter survey, didn't we? Very quickly, roughly themed around spreading the love. We asked people what 3 values or characteristics they most cherished in other people. It doesn't have to be wine related. Do you know what the top 3 were?
No, go on. I didn't. You totted this up, didn't you?
Honesty, sense of humour, and kindness.
Oh,
well, I think that's lovely. I think those are all 3 things that we're covering in this episode. Actually.
They are indeed. Yeah.
And the other ones I just flag up are empathy, which I thought was a very good one, and joie de vivre, which I think is lovely.
I like positivity as well.
Positivity was a lovely one that came through.
I
Absolutely.
really like positivity.
So we had a couple of funny answers. We'll only just do a
some
couple
funny
here.
ones.
Mike Best, Master of Wine, what 3 values or characteristics does he most cherish in other people? He said tea-making skills and a good forward defensive stroke.
What is a forward defensive stroke?
It's one for the cricket fans out there.
Okay.
That's another podcast. It's probably
I realised it was sporting. I wasn't sure whether we were
Look
talking
out for
football or cricket.
the Wine Blast forward defensive stroke podcast coming to you soon.
Not by Susie Barry. Paul Smith said, joie de vivre, interesting conversation and a willingness to be silly. A liking for wine is not just cherished, it is mandatory.
Yeah, I thought that might come back. Roger Lewis said, the ability to sensibly agree to disagree.
Rod Smith, MW, having a dog, liking sherry, appreciating bad jokes.
Love that.
I think that's more of a kind of a Lonely Hearts column, isn't
it? Greystoke Wines added one more, which I thought was great, which was refilling the ice tray if empty. Essential in life.
I think that's a good one. Yeah. We need that in our house, actually. Let's put it on the door. Right. And then GMP8 said truthfulness, loyalty, and a full wine cellar.
You can't argue with that, can you? So, talking of full cellars, we need to move on, don't we, to our wine recommendations. And also, we want to mention this amazing sort of Asian beef thing.
Oh, we do indeed, yeah. So all of these recommendations are from Majestic Wine, as we've said. A retailer, I think it's fair to say, that's become a British institution, hasn't it, really?
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. We've been fans for a long time, not just in terms of buying our own wines, which we do regularly, but also since, we kind of filmed there a lot, didn't we?
We did. Walk those aisles.
12 years when we were on Saturday Kitchen for BBC One. We would go and film there with great regularity. It was always a pleasure. And I think, Majestic's made its name with good wines, brilliant and well-trained staff, kind of unstuffy presentation in their warehouses.
Yeah, absolutely. But but over the years, let's be honest, it hasn't always been sort of plain sailing. They did go through a bit of a tough time recently, but in 2019 they changed owners and they're now back on the front foot. They're revamping their range. They've got 370 new wines this year. They've changed 70% of the portfolio. They've won lots of awards, it really is genuinely looking good again, isn't it?
They've got about 200 stores, I think, across the UK. They've got free delivery and a pretty user-friendly website, we find. So if you want to get these wines before or after Valentine's, it should be pretty easy to do.
It should indeed.
That's the idea.
Now, we, just to say, we regularly taste dozens of wines from Majestic's portfolio, as we do with many of the UK's key retailers.
I'd say hundreds, to be honest.
Who knows how many? We haven't counted. So we've got a pretty good idea. I think we've got a pretty good idea of what we think is worth recommending. And we've picked the following bottles and taste tested them again just now. So these recommendations are absolutely hot off the press. Just to say, the prices we're going to quote here are the Majestic Mix 6 prices. So it's when you buy 6 bottles, this is the price that you can get these wines for. So let's kick off with...
If you buy individually, they're slightly more expensive. But anyway,
what are we kicking off
with some fizz.
We've got to
Beck,
kick
I've
off
got
with
it here.
fizz.
MCC Method Classic Brut Chardonnay Pinot Noir. This is a mixed 6 price of $14.99. So it's great value. And what we found is we tried it with a range of fizzes, but this was just so drinkable, wasn't it?
It's very drinkable. So it's South African.
South African. It works. I think it works for, but if you like Prosecco or Champagne, this one can work for you.
Yeah.
It's just kind of easy going, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's got that fruitiness, but it's also got the breadiness of champagne. It's not too high acidity. So it's just a really easy drinking
joyful,
fizz.
Great. It's always good to open.
Yeah,
a bit of fizz on a special occasion. And importantly, we're talking about spreading the wine love, aren't we? This spreads the wine love to South Africa.
South Africa, which has suffered so much from sales and export bans recently. They've lost millions of pounds, many jobs. They need the love. So we're giving South Africa some love, and
with
it's
a delicious,
great bottle of wine,
great value sparkling wine there.
Yeah.
So moving on, the crisp white wine we got here is the winemaker series Godeo 2019 from Monterrey in Spain, and this one is.
So Sorry, it's right.
Yeah.
I was just going to say it's from right up in the northwest of Spain, and what we liked about this was it's dry, but it's fruity. It's got that yellow fruit. It's a little bit unusual. A Godeo, we're not talking Pinot Grigio or Sauvignon Blanc or whatever. It's a bit different. It's made by a female winemaker, Katia Alvarez, and it's about £9, isn't it?
Yeah, it's $9.99. I think you mentioned Pinot Grigio and Sauvignon. I think it would appeal to both lovers of Pinot Grigio and Sauvignon Blanc, actually.
Yeah.
And it would go with loads and loads of food. And it's just great value.
Yeah.
So a really lovely Godeo there. What's next up?
Next up, we've got a lovely rich white, beautifully made, rich but very elegant. This is Lismore Chardonnay 2018, again from South Africa. Now, this for us had this fantastic combination of it's barrel fermented, so it's sort of and aged in oak, French oak. It's got this lovely creaminess, but equally it's elegant and refreshing. It's got a lovely tangy, refreshing, lemony quality in the mouth, and it's just beautiful.
It is.
So
I think with Chardonnay,
stylish.
with great Chardonnay, you want that wonderful combination of both extravagance, nutty, golden richness, but also a savoury character and a freshness on the palate. And my word, this has got freshness.
Got it all.
It's
it
absolutely
really
delicious.
has.
I think we've tried it with quite a few different dishes, haven't we? And
It's worked with so many things.
We've had it with tarragon chicken.
So versatile.
And it's survived, really well in the bottle.
Well, and we also tried actually with some spice with like a dal made with cauliflower, and again it worked. I was quite surprised.
It's a seriously classy one.
Good.
It's not cheap. It's $22.99. But it's, do you know what? In the global context, it's great value. It's
equally,
stunning.
we are talking. Okay, I'm going to make a stand here. We're talking Valentine's, and nobody can go out for Valentine's this weekend. We can't go out to restaurants whether it's Valentine's or not Valentine's. There's no way of eating out. So I think it's time to just spend maybe a little bit more than we would normally. If you went to a restaurant, £22 would be a house wine price.
That's true.
This is so much more wine for that. And
so what you're saying is spend like you're in a restaurant.
Well, not quite, but just a little bit of a treat. Treat yourself. We all deserve it.
I think that's what this Valentine's is about. It's about treating yourself. If you've got other people to treat to, great, treat them. But whatever it is, everyone should be enjoying. It's just an excuse to enjoy some really special wine, nice wine, maybe a bit different.
So we should say this is made by Samantha O'Keefe. And Samantha was so unlucky. She lost her home and winery to a fire in 2019. So this is sort of the last vintage that Majestic has before the fire happened. And I think, again, let's spread that love. I mean, what a terrible thing to happen on top of everything else in South Africa.
She's a brilliant winemaker in a great part of South Africa. It'd be lovely to support her.
So we're spreading the love.
And South Africa. So Lismore Chardonnay, it looks beautiful as well. As Susie says, the pressure is on. You are not allowed to buy cheap wine. It's Valentine's, so there we go. And it's absolutely delicious.
So moving on, we've got a rosé, haven't we? An English rosé from Simpsons in Kent. It's the 2019. It is elegant. It's classy, it's refreshing, it goes brilliantly with all sorts of different foods, and we were amazed because it's quite light, yet it seems to work with smoked salmon, with charcuterie, with the Asian beef we talked about, and it's £11, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, $11.99. It's just great value. $11.99 is not cheap, but I think in the context of rosés, this is classy. It's dry, it's elegant. You can have this as an aperitif if you don't want to have sparkling wine, for example. But as you said, it goes with loads of food. And also, what's a nice angle here is this is made by Charles and Ruth Simpson, so husband and wife team. That's spreading the love, isn't it? And they also have an operation in the south of France, which might explain why they're so good with rosé.
Good at rosé,
And this is just spot on.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter that it's wintry if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. This is a rosé you can drink all year round.
Okay, so moving on to the reds. So we've already touched on this, the Balfour Winemakers Collection, the Suitcase Pinot Noir 2018. So if we remember, the 2018 vintage in the UK was phenomenal. It was really warm, which worked completely in the favour of red wines.
Yeah, it did. This one's what, 29? No, it's 34, I think, 99. But anyway, it's organic. It's from the Winners' Selection, as we said, in Kent. Now, the character is a little bit funky, isn't it? This is not just straightforward fruity Pinot Noir. It's a bit kind of
it's a bit
oaky,
earthy,
creamy, smoky. There's almost a hint of cordite in there as well. You've got some sort of that sous-bois character, kind of herbal, earthy tones.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
It's not really concentrated. concentrated, but it's sort of refreshing and characterful.
It's really characterful. You keep reaching for it. And what's really important is some lovely tannin there. It's a little bit bittersweet, and that makes it really, really foodie. And this worked really well with our Asian beef, didn't it?
Oh,
so
it did.
It is now the moment to just mention the Asian beef.
So this we think this is our top Valentine's dish. So what you do is you get a fillet of beef or part of a fillet of beef, and you marinate it. That's the thing. You need to marinate it for sort of 24 hours. But in things, the marinade is made of sake and mirin and sweet white miso and some mustard. So it gives it that sort of sweet but mustardy crust almost on it when you cook it. And then you serve it with a soy mustard sauce, which is very creamy and buttery, but mustardy and just tangy. And then you have some basmati with it, some simple, I think it needs very plain things with it. So basmati and something like pak choy, and then a little sprinkle of sesame seeds. It is the most delicious dish.
It's a fantastic dish. It was
really
from Waitrose Food Illustrator.
It was actually originally from a Waitrose kitchen. I've tweaked it around a little bit. We're going to put the recipe on our site. But we found this worked really well with the Winemaker's Collection
but it also worked
suitcase
well,
Pinot Noir.
didn't it, with
but it also worked well with the wine we're about to talk
which
about.
Is our top wine, I reckon, to put out there. This is the Duckhorn Decoy Merlot 2018 from Sonoma. This is, it's not cheap. It's $24.99, but my word, there's a whole world of wine.
Oh my goodness, it's such well. So this is the polar opposite from the suitcase Pinot Noir, because this is rich, it's creamy, it's plush, it's got a leafiness from the Merlot, but it's heartwarming and dense without being heavy. It was just beautifully complex, wasn't it?
I mean, if you
very
like Aussie
sumptuous
Shiraz or big bold styles like this, you would absolutely love this. It was sumptuous with the Asian beef, and it's really fun wine for Valentine's.
And let's say we're not always the biggest fans of really big reds, but there's something about this that has so much class that you just think
it really does.
It's
polished,
just
it's
stunning.
beautiful. It's just fun. It's a really fun, enjoyable wine to really lavish on yourself this Valentine's.
And it's Merlot.
And it's Merlot.
We're
So this is really important.
Spreading the love to Merlot.
Yeah, so there's two reasons spreading
back
love here. One is the wildfires in California this year have been horrific. So this is a way of supporting California. And these guys, Duckhorn, have been around. They were some of the founding fathers in Napa. They set up in 1976, so they're our venerable brand. But more than that, isn't it? We wanted to spread some love to Merlot because back in what was it? I think it was season 1, episode 28.
28, I think.
The best red wine grape ever. Some listeners wrote in to say they felt that Merlot was being unfairly overlooked. In that survey, which it was a bit, wasn't it? Specifically, Sally,
do you remember
Chateau
Sally?
Georges Set in Fronsac. So shout out to you, Sally, who was increasingly dismayed or upset, she put it in her own words, as she was hand labelling hundreds of bottles of Merlot while listening to our podcast, which she said, in her words, was the magnificent Merlot was being totally overlooked. So she ended up so depressed, she gave up work, fearing that no one would drink the wine she was labelling. So here you go, Sally, and to all you Merlot lovers out there, here is some love for Merlot.
True love.
We need to leave it there, don't we? Just one final thing to say. If you do fancy a slightly cheaper red, there's the Matsu El Recio Toro from Spain, 2018, which is about £12.99. It's another big sort of hearty red, but not too sweet. Cool label, something a bit different. But don't tell Susie, because apparently we're not allowed cheap wine on it.
Anyway, that is about all we have time for, I think. We'll put the recipe for the Asian beef, as I've said, on our show notes, susieandpeter.com. Thanks to Majestic for sponsoring this episode and for the very generous competition prize. And thanks also to WineGB for setting up and running this brilliant competition.
Yeah. Thanks to all of you who shared your stories about how you first fell in love with wine. They have been just the most brilliant entertainment at a time we all needed it. So thank you. Congratulations to our winner, Anna. Do look out for more competitions and giveaways coming up on Wine Blast. Check out our social media channels for all of that stuff.
But most importantly, let's all keep spreading the wine love. Thank you as ever for listening, and cheers.